Hi guys, bienvenidos to Todo, Vida podcast. My name's Ashley. I am the host of Todo, Vida podcast. It's been a little bit of a minute since I've recorded, but I feel like all the gaps that I usually take in recording these episodes usually have a purpose to them. And this episode, especially because of the direction that I'm trying to have with just the episodes that we're recording this year, I feel like, and something that I spoke on the last episode, is that last year I spoke a lot on topics that a lot of people really didn't talk about, or we were taught to not talk about, right? And while I was able to let you guys know that I can relate to a lot of the topics that I spoke about, this year is about just turning a new leaf and being able to be in your chapter of acceptance and being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So with the direction of these next episodes, it was important that I had Rosie on this episode.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. She is the account, well, the face behind the account, Hefas_Run the World, right? Just want to make sure I get that right.
Yes, Hefas Run the World. Yeah.
Hefas Run the World. And before she starts talking and before I start pretty much having her share her story, I wanted to be very transparent on how I came to know her, right? So it was through her daughter, Michelle. So back when we were younger, we used to work in, I'll just be honest,
Yeah,
you know?
go ahead.
We used to work in dispensaries together, right? And obviously being a part of that life, or just being a part of that industry, right? That environment, better said, you don't come across the best people. And when I met Michelle, she was someone that was very strong-willed. She spoke up when she saw something wasn't right. And I think that in that environment, you're taught to just hush, hush. Stay quiet, don't have a difference in opinion. And so when I met her, I instantly connected with her. And she started sharing her mom's page, and she started sharing like her mom on social media. And I was like, there's more of them? Like, I gotta
There's a lot of us.
I was like, I gotta see who the monarchy of this family is. Because yes, of course, because I was like, I saw the way that she carried herself, and I saw the way that she was, and I gravitated towards her, and I was like, I want to see where she learned that from, you know? And then I started following your page, and I've been following her story, and I don't want to be the one to tell it, but we'll just dive right in, okay?
Yeah.
We'll just start from the basics, okay? So tell us how many kids you have, where you grew up, stuff like that.
Okay, so I grew up in Inglewood, California, which is like 2 hours from here.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 kids. I started at a very early age, which was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I have now 5 grandchildren, which I love. Once you hit that milestone of being a grandma, like I can't even tell you how much I love them. I will take my grandkids over my kids anytime. I've been married for 28 years. I just celebrated my 28-year, was it last Monday? On the 3rd.
Okay.
But we've been together for 30 years.
Okay.
And being a mom at an early age came with a lot of challenges, right? Because there's things that I wasn't taught. I was taught that you had to work and provide food on the table, a roof over their head, but the emotional part wasn't really taught. That's something that I had to learn through all the mistakes that I made. And I can say that my girls, all my kids, are really close together. Like they're always in communication. I have a good relationship with them. They can sit there with me and tell me like anything. And I don't think I judge them. I just listen to them.
Yeah.
If people sit down and see how we talk, they would probably be like, what the fuck? Can I cuss?
Yeah, go ahead. Be you.
They'd be like, what the fuck? You guys talk to each other like that? Because again, I grew up with my kids, you know, and they've taught me so much. But growing up, I grew up in the hood, right? So I was around gangbangers, and it's something that I just wanted to make sure that my kids didn't grow up around that.
Yeah.
So I just started hustling. I mean, working at an early age. I was 17 when I got pregnant. I worked till I was 8.5 months pregnant. Waited the whole 40 days and went back to work because that's what I was taught. But also I wanted to make sure that my kids didn't have that environment that I had.
Yeah.
You know?
Your kids are how many years apart?
So Jeanette is a year and 10 months apart from my twins.
Okay.
So they're not even 2 years apart. I had 3 kids in diapers.
So that So that means that what Jeanette was 10 months when you got
year. No,
a year.
she
when she
a
got
year
pregnant.
and 10.
No,
yeah,
but
she was a year
when you
she
got
was,
pregnant with the twins.
yeah,
Though, she was a year old.
Yeah.
And then you had the twins, 2 for the price of 1.
Yes, I didn't know I was pregnant with twins.
No,
I didn't know.
How did you find that out?
Because I had got my period, and then like literally 2 weeks later, I started getting symptoms. And I was like, "There's no way I'm pregnant." And then I waited and I waited and I waited. I waited till I was a month and a half, and I didn't get my period, so I went to the doctor, and then they did an ultrasound, and the doctor was like, and I was like, oh, I was thinking like, oh, it's what I probably have cancer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I see 2 bags, but it just did not register. Like, I'm like, 2 bags? 2 bags of what? He's like, you're having twins. And I started having a panic attack again because she was only 1.
Yeah.
Right.
And what was life like? Okay, so you grow up in Inglewood, you get pregnant young. Granted, you've been blessed to be able to sustain a relationship so many years, right?
Yeah.
With the father of your children. But what was life like for you at that time? Like, did you know the direction that your life was going to go? Did you know what you wanted to do?
No. I know I wanted to finish school because I was, again, my parents always worked. My dad was an alcoholic. Thank God I can say was, right?
Yeah.
He was an alcoholic. So I knew for sure that's something that I didn't want. I didn't want to be drinking or making sure that my kids saw that.
Repeat the same cycle.
Exactly, the same pattern. My mom would have to keep 2-3 jobs sometimes at a time because my dad would lose his job,
Yeah.
But she did what she had to do to keep a roof over our head, right? So the emotional intelligence wasn't there. Like, there was never, I'm going to be there for you. There was never that. She tried, though.
Yeah.
Until this day, I can tell you I have nothing to say bad about my parents because I know because of what I've gone through that I'm a huge advocate of therapy. So because I've done therapy, I can tell you that they didn't know any better. So that's why they did what they did.
Right. Which I feel like a lot of times people grow up with similar situations, right? Maybe a parent has substance abuse, or maybe they're not wanting to repeat the same cycles, right? But they don't know how to cut that off. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that they repeat the same cycles and they end up making themselves like a victim to their circumstances.
And you have to understand, like, for example, his dad committed suicide when he was 14, and he's the one that saw him. So I had to sit there and understand, like, okay, this is what he saw. That's when he started drinking. This is why he started drinking. So obviously I can't sit there and knock him for that. Like, he tried his best. He did what he could, right? My mom was the oldest of all her siblings. She started working at 16, got pregnant so she can leave home because she was taking care of her siblings. So she did what she had to do to get out.
What made you gain that emotional intelligence to be able to see your, one, and not be victim mentality when you see your upbringing?
Yeah.
But also, what made you be so merciful towards your parents and their upbringing and the way that they raised you? Because not a lot of people don't.
No, therapy. In therapy, you have to find the right therapist, first of all, right?
Okay.
And it's like when you're trying on shoes, you're like, no, this shoe doesn't fit. The same thing with therapists. If that you don't feel like it's the right one, kind of like how we're having a conversation. If you can't sit here and open up with a stranger, that's not your person, right?
Okay.
Same thing happens in therapy. So I found a good therapist. We started talking, and I had to sit there and you kind of do like an inventory of your life. Like, you sit there like, I did this, I did that. I used to open the drawers of, my kids would be doing something. I'd be like, oh, clean your room. They wouldn't clean their room. I would open the drawers, throw everything on the floor. My mom used to do that. And you have to sit there and be like, shit, but I didn't know I was doing any harm. You didn't know. So, like, if you don't know any better, you're not going to change that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Going to therapy, I was able to have, like, how we're having a conversation. My kids can sit here and talk shit to me, and I take it in a way that, like, I validate them. You're right. I fucked up.
Because you can be held accountable.
Exactly.
Something that we weren't raised with. We weren't raised to be able to hold our parents accountable, let alone for us to be able to tell them, like, hey, I didn't like the way that this made me feel. Or
because
hey,
it was, oh, you're disrespecting me. But no, I'm just telling you my feelings.
Right.
Like, listen to me.
Yeah.
And I had to sit there and listen to my kids my mom's 72. My mom started getting therapy at 70. I paid for a therapist, and I said, Mom, you need therapy. She sat there.
You actually convinced her to do it?
Yes, I did. you know, after my brother passed, which we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
She just she spiraled, and I had to get her a therapist. And she sat there and was like, I didn't know this about me. And I said, you know, it's okay. She wrote a letter apologizing to me. And I said, Mom, you don't have nothing to apologize. I understand.
How many years did it take you to get her, like, to convince her, like, Mom, there's not that there's something wrong, but something needs to be fixed here, or something needs to be acknowledged, or whatever it was that you told her? Because they're very quick to be defensive and take it as disrespect, or you're telling me something's wrong. And in their head, they've lived life like this so long that they're like, nothing's wrong. You can't tell me anything's wrong. Yeah. So how did you even acknowledge it to her? Like,
I've always had a very, me say, yeah, you have such a strong character, but I just feel like, why beat around the bush? Just let's have a conversation. I had to tell her, like, Mom, something's not right. You have to talk to somebody. If you can't talk to me, you know, she would go after my brother passed, probably like a month and a half, just being in bed.
Oh, so this is recent.
Recent. My mom's 72.
Because your brother passed away how long ago?
In 2021.
Okay. I was going to say 3 years.
No,
but yeah, almost.
It's going to be 5 years in August.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is recent. This is recent. So, but she had her own demons, right? Because she didn't have a good relationship with my brother, right? So she had these things that she was carrying. And it just, at first she was fine. And then it just started spiraling, not eating. My mom was like 130 and she had got down to like 110. You know, no se estaba bañando, little things like that. And I would always be like, I knew something was wrong with her because I understood her. I was that person before I got therapy, right? So I just started like, Mom, let's get you a therapist. No, vas a gastar dinero. I'm like, I'm not asking you to pay for it. I'm not asking you for nothing. I just want you to talk to somebody. Yeah. And I got her somebody to come to the house. So one of my good friends is a therapist, but obviously because she's my friend, she can't be her therapist.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So I forgot what.
Like what is it? Conflict of interest.
Yeah, there we go. Conflict of interest. So she got another person, and that I gave her my phone number. I said, I'm going to pay you. My mom doesn't like to go out. You know, this is what's happening. I just want her to talk to somebody. So she did. And it started at first like, no quiero hablar con nadie. And then, when is she coming back? When is she coming back? And she just started talking. And she's like, I brought up stuff from my childhood that I didn't remember. You know, my mom was, I believe, sexually abused. She doesn't really talk about it too much. Okay. I do. I talk about my sexual abuse openly.
Are your parents still together?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, they're still together.
Did your dad do therapy as well?
No.
I think the reason why it's so important for us to start from the ground up with you telling your story is because it's like empieza desde niña. Like you didn't have these examples of how to be a mom. And so you had to learn not through the examples that you had, but through the examples you didn't have. Yeah. And I think what's important to talk about here is that even if you don't have an example of how you would like to be, sometimes you have examples of how you wouldn't like to be. And you have to have enough courage and strength to turn that around, which I think a lot of people don't. And it goes back to people putting themselves in victim mentality. So you even starting from your foundation up. Yeah. You're opening up that it's like, no, I didn't have those examples.
So, no, I did. I mean, not that I say I wish I did, because I don't want to change what happened, because I'm actually very proud of myself. You know, like there's nothing that you can tell me like that you can try to hit. Yeah, like you can't hit me with nothing, because I'd be like, yep, I did it. Yeah, but ask me how I grew from it.
Right.
Ask me that.
That's the important
Let's
conversation.
Let's have that conversation.
Because I think a lot of people focus on like who you were before your growth. Or a lot of times people want to go ahead and call that out, like, again, who you were before the growth. Yeah. But the importance in the conversation is not, the important conversation is not what I did before I grew. Yeah. My mentality, my maturity. It's how I grew it, why I decided to grow it, you know, and turn over that leaf.
When I was about 8 or 9, my neighbor tried to rape me, right? And I didn't tell anybody for like 3 months. Mind you, he's my neighbor, right? And I'm telling you this story because of this, right? So my mom was combing my hair and she went to touch my back, and I was like, I flinched. Yeah. And she's like, because she's been a victim of sexual abuse, she saw the sign and she says, ¿Qué te pasó? And I said, nothing. And she's like, whatever happened is not your fault. That's all she said. And I said what I said. I went to school. I came back. My brother, who passed at the time, picked me up. And
how much older was he than you?
He died when he was 48 and I was 42. So 6 years.
So 6 years.
6 years.
Okay. Well, which when you're younger, that's a significant amount of a difference. Like, of course. 12 and 18.
He's in his teens and I'm,
Yeah.
And he picked me up and he's like, get on the monkey bars. And I was like, where's mom? He's like, get on there. So whatever. I get home and the guy's car, because the guy is 21, right? All his tires were slashed. My brother tried to stab him. And so, but before anybody found out, my dad didn't catch any signs. The guy would come to the house, knock on the door, and bring me snacks. And I think that's where my food addiction came, right? Okay. So he'd be like, no seas majadera, cómetelas. But till this day, I can tell you, I don't feel nothing. Like, I don't feel any anger towards my dad because he didn't catch it.
I've always said people are only in the capacity to understand things to their capacity. Exactly,
right? But if I had sat there throughout my whole life and be like, es que él esto, es que lo, where would I be right now? Mm-hmm. Like, where the fuck would I be? Yeah. And I think a lot of people are okay being stuck in that mentality because that's where they're comfortable at. Right. And because growth fucking hurts and it hurts. Yeah. Because you have to see a mirror. Like you get a mirror held up and you're like, fuck, I did that. Yeah. Right. And you have to choose. Do you want to keep seeing that or do you want a different image? Yeah. And so there's things that I did, like I would break windows with my hands, because I wanted to fight somebody and I couldn't fight anybody. So I wanted pain. Or
also too, maybe you didn't know how to let out that feeling, that emotion. I won't label it as anger, only what that exact emotion was, but maybe you didn't know how to take it out. So that was, what you resorted to. Yeah. Which I think a lot of people have their outlet in what they resort to that is not productive, right? Or beneficial to them, but they do it. And you can say now, hey, I did this. Yeah. And this is how I grew from it, which is why you're saying it now. But I think the importance of this conversation too is realizing that like a lot of people stay there
because they choose to stay there. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many tools that we're given. And sometimes we're just kind of like, I'm fine here. Mm-hmm. This is comfortable. Mm-hmm. I know what being here feels like.
Growth is scary too.
Yes, it is. It's super scary because there's things that you have to face that you think you're like, I'm not ready to face them. So I'm going to stay right here where I'm comfortable. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I had that choice. And for many years, I stayed there. Right. And I speak openly on my social media, which you were bringing up stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I said that. You know, about trying to commit suicide. I tried to commit suicide 3 times. Asking for help, almost having my kids taken away because I asked for help, not because I was abusive. I don't think I was an abusive parent, so to speak, like physically abusive. Yeah. Maybe I would say something out of pocket, but I was never like, eres un pendejo, never. I never spoke to my kids like that, I would just be like, Dad, sit down.
And a lot of people don't realize, or parents don't realize, that the way that you speak to your kids ends up being the voice that we listen to in our head.
Exactly.
So it's like, wow.
And there's things that I can tell you that my kids have told me, like, Mom, remember when you used to do that? And again, therapy, I sit there like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I fucked up. I'm sorry. I validate them. I want them to talk to me. And there's times where I tell my mom, like, Ma, ¿se acuerda cuando hacía? No, like she gets defensive.
Yes. Yeah.
And I stop because I was like, she's not there yet. And I don't know if she's ever going to be there because she's set in her ways.
How do you accept that?
It's not my problem. You know what I'm saying? It's not my problem. It's not. Okay. I choose to be happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't sit there. I have conversations with her like I have with you. And I tell her, you have choices, Mom. You have choices. Like sometimes her and my dad bicker, right? Yeah. And I'm like, he's set in his ways. You're set in your ways. I'm like, you can choose there and be like, me va a seguir molestando? Or are you going to just ignore him? Just ignore him.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You guys have been together for so damn long.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a good relationship with my husband. My husband's like my best friend. Because I see my parents. I don't want to be my parents. I love my parents, but I don't want to be bickering when I'm in my 70s,
People hear that you've been married for 28 years and that you've had a relationship for 30 years.
Yeah.
And that you've been able to still obtain this relationship through all of your trials and tribulations, right? What would you, and this is remember I told you, I was like, I'm going to ask you a
Yeah.
question, right? Because I know your response is going to be genuine.
Yeah.
And it's a response that's so genuine that you can't give the same answer twice, right?
Okay.
How did you still obtain that relationship through your growth?
Well, number one, I had to accept him for him. Because I think for many years I wanted to change him. Like, you know, he's from Mexico. He was raised with two parents who showed no affection whatsoever. My parents did show affection to a certain extent. His didn't.
Okay.
So his affection was, I gotta go to work. I gotta put food on the table. I would do things alone with my kids, like school plays, doctor visits, and sometimes I just wanted that support. So for a while, when I was going through my depression, I had anger towards him. And I had to sit there and think to myself, like, why do I want to change this man? Why can't I just show him that there's another side to how his life is? And right now he tells me, man, gracias a Dios que no te dices por vencida. He's like, I see things different. Instead of me forcing it, like, come on, you got to change for me. I'm not going to be with you if you don't change for me. It doesn't go that way. And my kids will literally be like, man, you know, I love your relationship to a certain extent because they're my kids. You know, sometimes they butt heads with their dad. Por lo mismo, porque él tiene otras costumbres. Él tiene costumbres like, tienes que trabajar, quieres algo, which is good. But I tell him, it's not always work. You got to have experiences. You got to have memories. ¿Para qué estamos trabajando if we're just every day killing ourselves?
Right.
And, you know, like he just bought himself a truck and he had never bought a brand new truck.
Yeah, I saw
right?
Those of that too.
He never bought him. I'm like, ¿qué quieres? What do you want? I don't know if I deserve. Yes, you do. You work hard. You know what I'm saying? But these are things that were instilled in him from his parents. And his parents, I was having a conversation with you. I had asked him, I don't know, like 2-3 months ago, ¿qué te acuerdas de tu niñez? He started crying. We were at a restaurant. He stepped out. My daughter called me. She's like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, eating where we're always eating. I said, Dad stepped out. He started crying. Why'd you make him cry? You know, I'm like, no, I didn't make him cry. She's like, go get him. I said, no. I said, he needs his time. So he came back and he's like, I don't have any memories of my He's been working since he was 4. He's like, I don't have any memories. He's like,
Y se mira bien alegre though. Like whenever you post him, he's always cracking a joke or he's always making you laugh.
And he wasn't like that. Él era bien serio. I crack jokes all the time with his mom too. I'm like, oh, le trae una tanga puesta, like, you know, because that's not what they're used to. Like on his side of the family, I'm the only USA citizen. Like todas las demás son mexicanas de allá, you know?
Oh, wow. So
like las costumbres son diferentes. Allá les tienes que servir a tu esposo. Luego tú, we both work, you know, so he's got accustomed to how I do things.
But there's mutual respect,
yes, there's mutual respect. There's not like, well, you know, yo mando él. No, we both talk. We have conversations like, hey, ¿qué piensas esto? No, okay, esto. Okay, well, I feel like this is not how we should do it, but what do you think? Like, so we have conversations.
Okay.
But it wasn't always like that. You have to gradually, there's chapters in your marriage or there's chapters in your relationships where you're like, this is not working. Let me try something else.
You have to realign yourselves.
You have to, and that's how it is in life.
When you were going through your evolution, right? And
that's a big word.
but essentially though, that's what you did because you evolved as a person, right?
Yeah.
So when you were going through your process of just recognizing, okay, I don't like when I react like this to that, or I don't like that I emotionally eat, or I don't like these certain things about myself and I have to change. At one point, your outlet wasn't productive, right? Like, for example, you breaking windows and stuff like that. He never looked at you like, girl, you're crazy. Like,
he did.
Yeah?
He did. He would go to my mom and tell my mom and then be like, are you fucking snitching on me? You know, like, you know. But this man has loved me so much that it made me want to be like, that's not who I want to be. That's not the wife I want to be. That's not the mother I want to be. That's not the woman I want to be. When I went to therapy, I'm still a food addict. I'm going to say that's what I am. I feel like I am, right? But I had the gastric sleeve in 2017, right? I had tried so much to lose weight. I lost 100 pounds on my own, then gained 60 back. Then I tried for 2 years before I took that drastic decision, because it's a drastic decision. You're having something of your body removed. he supported me. I spoke to him. I said, look, I can't do this. I've tried so much, but, I just feel like I can't do it on my own. He supported me. He went with me. He didn't agree with it, but he supported me. Okay. But what I did is before I even got the surgery, I signed up. I started looking for a therapist because I was no longer going to have food. So I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? Am I going to resort back to violence? Am I going to find another addiction? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? And I remember this one time I had a conversation with my sister. She says, what's going to change? When you get it done, what's going to change? And that clicked. I'm like, nothing's going to change if I don't do the work, right?
Yeah.
My little sister, because that's the only sister I have a relationship with. And I started getting therapy. So I had to figure out how to replace food with something else. And I started journaling and I started writing and I started reading. I don't read the Bible, but I read the daily prayer. And then you kind of meditate okay, how can I take this and apply it to
almost
today?
Like a devotional?
Yeah, devotional book.
Okay.
I have so many of them. Te mando uno because I have so many. I pick them up and then I'm like, oh, and then I send them out to people. So I had to figure out how I was going to not use food anymore. And I started doing that. And that's where my change started coming. That's why I'm a huge advocate for mental health because people, in la comunidad hispana, don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's the first thing. Don't victimize yourself.
No estoy loco. And it's not that. There's just so many things bottled up and you're trying to find an outlet and you don't know how to do it. And we find it in the wrong ways. Drinking, eating,
toxic relationships, whatever it is.
Yes. Even a toxic relationship with yourself. You know what I'm saying? The way you speak to yourself, the way that you look, because before I'd be like, I can't fucking do this. I'm worthless. Look at you. You're fat. I used to I would never hate myself because I don't like to use the word hate. It's a strong word,
Yeah.
And I feel like it's como una semillita que crece. So I don't use hate, right? Yes. But I disliked myself so much. So much. And there was things that I stopped doing. I didn't want to go places. I didn't want to see people. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to go to school events because I didn't want my kids to be made fun of.
Do you think that that's what would you call that? Would you call that imposter syndrome? Would you call that
I think I think I just not denial or maybe denial of my actual truth. Because it's how did I get here? How?
And I think that is something that people don't realize, that all the life experiences that you've had, whether it's from childhood, whether it's learning how to be a mother through your own journey of motherhood, right? And you have to sit there and you look back at your childhood. All these things pile up at one point.
Yeah.
And that's when truena. And for some people, truena in a bad way.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's where their journey really begins, because that's the journey of change.
Yeah.
That, like you said, a lot of people are willing to stay comfortable in it. So I think even people being able to hear the beginning of this podcast episode right now, and if they don't know already, which I'm pretty sure it's clear, you have a lot of different roles that you fulfill. Right. And like I told you off camera, you're like the monarchy of your family. You're like the head of your family. So it's at what point did you realize that was the role, that the responsibility that you had to take on? And how do you carry that responsibility and that role? Because a lot of people end up having to accept that that's their role. They see their circumstances and no nos queda de otra, right? Yeah. They have to do it. That's where I relate to. And that's why I wanted you on the episode, is on the podcast, was because I'm I can relate to her so much.
Yeah. When you would ask me, I'm I'm not that interesting.
Yeah. And I'm me and Mama are sitting here she's a natural. But it's because you're so transparent and you're so genuine, right? So my question to you is a lot of people end up realizing that that's what it comes down to. That's the role and the responsibility that they have
that's what they gave me.
Right. Yeah. But they sit there and they drag their feet this is what I have to be, and this is not fair, and this is not what it should have been, and why can't so-and-so take it on? And they just sit there and don't accept what is. And you've come to the point of accepting that. But one, how do you manage it? And two, when did you come to accept it?
So to give you a little bit of a backstory, there was 5 of us. I'm the second baby. So I'm not even the oldest, right? And since I was young, I had this conversation with you. I felt awkward. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like not the black sheep, even though black sheep is considered somebody who's a fuck up. I just didn't feel like I belonged in my family with my siblings, right? Porque les gustaba tomar, party, you know. And I would see how that would affect my mom and my dad. And I'd be like, that's not, and I was young. And I mean, there's things that happened I'm not going to say on camera because that's my dad's personal life. But there was things that put me in that situation that I was like, that's not where I want to be, right? But I always took charge. Oh, because you're already doing it. Síguelo haciendo, you know? And then from there, it went to my brother. My oldest brother was in and out of prison for quite some time. And then my older brother by 2 years, he just started going towards that way, right? So he's actually in prison right now. My brother, who's 2 years older than I, he's been in prison for, I think, 12, 13 years. So there was I got put in positions where it's like, I don't have a choice, right? But I had a choice on how I thought to do that role, right? And the more I did it, the more I was like, all right, let me find grace in this. Let me find the positive in this. Or I'm closer to my parents. I can spend more time with my parents.
People will say, they'll hear you right now and it'll resonate with them, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
I didn't know either.
That's what I was going to ask
I
you.
didn't know either. Like, it just, there's times where I'll be like, ¿Cómo le voy a hacer? You know, my kids need me. My husband needs me. I got to take care of my house. I got to take care of my parents. There's so many things that you have to do. But the more you think about everything that you have to do, the more your anxiety builds, right?
Yeah.
What can you do? All right. So I sat there like, okay, so ¿qué puedo hacer? When they murdered my brother in 2021. I know we didn't talk about that, but they murdered my brother in 2021. I'm like, ¿Cómo le hago? Like, my mom, my dad, you know. I just started going, Mom, tiene que comer. Every Wednesday, like clockwork. Le llevaba sushi. My mom loves sushi. I would take her flowers. Now I take her flowers and I take her 2 ramos de flores, one for my brother and one for her, because she has like a little shrine for my brother, right? There's things that you don't know how to handle, but the more you try to fight against it, even though it's not fair, it's not. Right. It's not fucking fair that you're put in that position, right?
People get stuck in wanting to feel validated that it's not fair what happened.
It's not.
It's right. Okay, we can say that. It's not fair. But you todavía tienes que seguir adelante. Yeah. And that's just, I don't know if that's what you would call the hard truth. But I mean, what else can we call it though? You know? And even hearing you say the things you've done, right? Whether it was take your mom sushi or the 2, you know, the intention behind the 2 ramos de flores, you know, like the 2 bouquets of flowers, one for your brother, one for your mom. You weren't taught this.
No.
And a lot of people, we need to go back to, a lot of people would sit there and instead, well, my mom didn't do that for me growing up, so why should I do that for her? She used to yell at me. She used to throw my toys. She used to do this. And they stay in that victim mentality. Yeah. Right?
And I know people in my family that have that victim mentality, you know? Y otra vez sale el espejo like, that's not what the fuck I want for me. You know? And you, in some way, you have to forgive your parents, even if you don't like verbally tell them, hey, te perdono, you know? Or even if you're like, let me have a conversation, because again, certain parents, you can't have a conversation with them, right? Because se ponen defensive. They weren't taught this. They weren't They weren't taught to have an open line of communication. They were taught, if you talk back, es una falta de respeto, but you're like, listen to me, hear me, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I have to do it. So why am I going to do it pissed off? Why am I going to do it angry? You're going to have this resentment. It's going to fuck up your life. You're going to find something else to, you know, to use that anger towards, like, no, I'm going to find a way to do it in a way that it doesn't feel like I'm forced to do it. And do I know how I still do it? No. I just know that when I see my kids, when I see my husband, tenemos una vida en paz. You know, of course, the in-laws is a totally different subject. Because you heard it on there. Yeah. You know, there's drama, but that's a totally different subject and it's not worth the conversation. But seeing my kids now, I can sit back and look, like I said, like that little toy where you see your whole life. Yeah. And you're like, fuck, Rosie, you did it. Like you did. I can tell my daughters will have conversations with me like, Mom, ¿cómo lo hiciste? I don't know. I said, pero si yo lo hice, tú lo puedes hacer, because now you have my help. Because my twins, I had to go to work. I worked at Home Depot. I worked overnight because we couldn't afford a babysitter. So I would work overnight. I would come home like at 6 a.m. My husband would go to work and I had to stay up with him, right? And I would have a playpen for my twins. I got the poles from the Home Depot and I put that green fencing.
Yes, yeah, I know. It's almost like it's almost like see-through a little bit. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So I put the green fencing porque they learned how to get out, right? My twins would get one on top of each other, right? Michelle would get on.
I'm like, Michelle being bad?
Michelle would get on all fours and my son would get on top and he would jump over, right? And I would be asleep like in the couch. My other daughter would be watching TV. They couldn't go to preschool, estaban chiquitos. And I would be like, so I mean, it was hard raising them. It was hard, but I did it, you know. And I tell my girls, I'm like, you guys have kids, but now you guys have me. I can help you, you know. Pero eso sí te voy a decir, I'm so proud of my girls. My girls never called me like, Mom, can you please come and watch the baby because I don't know what I'm doing. They figured it out. I said, call me if you can't figure it out. They never called me. I mean, now they'll call me like, Mom, I need some time off. Or Michelle, no, because she lives a little bit further away.
Yeah.
But like, hey, you need a break? I'll go help you. Like, I don't have a problem because I knew what it felt like to feel trapped, even though those are your kids. But sometimes you're like, fuck them kids, you know? You know what I'm saying?
You need a break, yeah.
It's
Te sientes ahogada on top of all the other responsibilities that you have to fulfill.
Because cuando empiezas a ser una... O sea, somos mujeres, right? But we lose our identity every fucking day. Like every day, especially, okay, I have to go to work. All right, now I have to be a provider. I have to be a mother. I have to be the cleaner. I have to be this. And men do too.
That's my biggest
I'm not
fear.
taking away from that, right? But it's harder for women because we're thinking about everything else that we have to do on top of taking care of ourselves, you know? On top of taking care of, you know, today I'm wearing mascara, but there's some days where I'm just like, you know, this mascara is wearing me, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but so there's just so many hats that you have to wear, but you have to learn to give yourself grace. You know, you have to learn to be kind to yourself. And again, that's what I was telling you. Like, I never hated myself, but I didn't accept myself.
Right.
And my girls are in their 20s and I tell them, I'm insane. Like you know,
yes, that's something that you said even on your social media platform. You said, I spent so long not accepting myself in my 20s that now at my age, I'm going to accept myself.
Yeah, I'm going to love the shit out of myself. Like,
that completely changed the way that I looked at myself.
Exactly.
To be completely honest, because I'm like, I'm 27 now and I'm never going to get younger than what I currently am. So I have to learn to
You are
accept
today
myself.
young, girl.
Yeah.
Ya mañana you're older. This is the only day you can get to be this young, you know? So like, don't waste it on trying to find the perfect body, trying to find the perfect, I don't know what you're looking for, you know? But I used to weigh 320 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And I got down to 164, between 165 and 160. I wasn't happy. I kept searching for something, but I didn't know what I was searching for. And once I figured out, like, this is how I talk to myself, bitch. This is what you were fighting for when you were your 320 pounds. What's the problem?
What's the problem?
Right?
Now?
What's the problem?
I think we tend to do that a lot. Because even me, right? Like the other day I caught myself. I was super overwhelmed. I was stressed out with my business. Because, you know, it's just me and everything that I do, right? Which I know you can relate. You can understand. So it's just me. And I remember that I got off work. I was stressed out. I was rushing to my partner's house. We were, you know, trying to I still try to have a social life because it allows me to desahogarme. It allows me to decompress from all the stresses of my business. And I'm sitting there and I'm stressed out and I'm like, fuck, it's my day off, but then I got to go back to work Monday and I got to go to the shop and I got to teach and I literally caught myself and I was like, you're living days you prayed for and you're still complaining?
Yeah.
And I was just like, actually, let me fill my heart with gratitude instead of complaining.
Yes.
And, you know, it's crazy because people would see us on the outside, right? Which what I'm trying to really target through not only just this conversation that's just flowing genuinely and naturally, but what I'm really trying to target is that people hear the things that are now just surface level, which I think is very common. People have surface level conversations. Oh, Rosie, what do you do? Oh, you have a career. That's awesome. Oh, you have a house in Mexico. Your family's expanding. Your kids are doing well. Your son just graduated.
There's 13 of us now.
Yeah, I know you're so proud of that. 13. I love it. But, or they'll see me and they'll be like, you have your business, you're 27, you have a house, you have a car. And I'm like, hold on.
Yes.
You have
Ask me.
Yes.
What the fuck I had to go through, how many sleepless nights, how many times I had to figure out what I was going to eat.
And people want to have those conversations sometimes. I feel to, like, when they say like misery needs company. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people want to have those conversations so they could be like, dude, no way, me too. That was fucked up, huh? Yeah. And those conversations are now changing. When you get with the right people, right? Like how you said, like if you can't talk with someone this openly, then they're not part of
they're not
your tribe. They're not part of your people, right? So us being able to have this conversation, and even people listening right now that are able to be like, wow, okay, they can talk about the experiences that they went through. Yeah. But so that's what's underneath all the success and all the achievements. But one thing that I want to acknowledge is like, I think right? So you can understand it. That's not everything that there is to life.
No. Sometimes I have a conversation. I'm so grateful in estoy en la vida. I'm grateful. Like I'm grateful to God every day. I try to wake up in gratitude, right? I was such a complainer before, like, and then again, just trying to connect. I don't consider myself any religion, but I believe in God. Like God is my homie till the day I die, right? Yeah. And I feel like learning to get closer to God has helped me be like, no tengo esto, pero tengo esto. Fuck, I'm grateful for that, right? And I tell my kids, don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you have right now. See that as a blessing. Enjoy it. Para cuando te llegue lo que you've been fighting for, you can feel,
receive it.
Yes. Like you're not, well, it was already coming my way. No, it doesn't work that way. No. You have
to. Uno tiene que luchar for the things that they want.
It is, yeah.
Anything handed to you?
I wish, right? Ooh. We all wish. But if it was handed to you, you don't appreciate it.
You don't appreciate it.
You don't appreciate. You're like, it just came to me. Whatever. And if you lose it, it doesn't even bother you. A perfect example. My son, his first car was a Tahoe, right? He had a better car than his teacher in high school. That's what we gave him when he started driving. He got into a car accident. And then the next time he got a car, I said, look, you want a car? I'll go half with you. So you want a $10,000 car? You got to give me $5,000. He got a $3,000 car, right? Right? But then after he's like, man, Mom, I miss my car. I said, you see?
Lo aprecias
Yeah.
más.
I'm like, you had a fucking Tahoe. Like he was 18. I go, you know what I had? I said, I had a Nova that was breaking down. I go, that's what I had. That's all my dad can give me because he didn't want me to walk to school. I said, so aprecia lo que tengas para que cuando te llegue más, you're like, let me take care of that.
Yeah.
Let me
God
take care of it.
God is not going to give you more if you don't appreciate what you already have.
And that's the conversation I have all the time. Like, how are you asking that you want all this, right? When you have this and you're neglecting, like you got a couch, you're like, fuck, I want whatever you want. Your couch looks fucked up. You're not cleaning it. You're not like spot cleaning it. You're not doing anything because you're like, it's just a fucking couch. No, you worked hard for that couch. Take care of that couch. Yeah. Right? So cuando te llegue otra cosa, you take care of that. That's what I tell my kids all the time. Like, take care of what you have para que te siga llegando más. Like, I feel like God's not going to give you, like, he's already giving you this. Like, let me see how you're going to take care of this, right? Even with your gifts, with your talents, right? Because I'm pretty sure waxing coochies is not easy, right?
Yeah. No,
you have to have a talent, right? Because if you take that thing off and you hurt your client, she's not going to come back to you.
And sometimes I think we get lost in just day-to-day survival that we forget that things should be purposeful and they should have intention. Yeah. And I felt like even at one point when I was recording the podcast, I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know the direction that I'm going, right? And I know
that I knew something was there.
But I knew something was there, exactly. But I kind of, again, I got lost in survival. So I wasn't doing more because I wasn't taking care of what I had. Yeah. If that makes sense. So
I don't know if you notice sometimes I just go off and be like, now my head's not in the right space. Or I'm not like, some of my merch is OG design. Some of it is not, right? Because I've learned to work smarter and not harder, right?
Yeah.
But I still try to put stuff out that has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody can just put something on a shirt, right? But like, what's the purpose behind it, right? And before I was like, the whole reason I started merch, believe it or not, I was being petty. You want me to tell you?
Yeah, tell me.
I'm gonna keep it real, right? So what happens on social media if I'm your friend, but let's say I'm not cool with him, but he's your friend and you repost me, I'm gonna come up on, he's gonna see me, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna see me, right? So there was I had a group of friends, and then we had a fallout, and then I just started doing shirts, but I was like, they're gonna fucking see it. They're gonna see it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool, whatever. But it started with that, but it didn't feel right. It didn't feel, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? You know? I was like, why? Who gives a fuck? Like, they're no longer my friends. I do feel that people are, ¿cómo se dice eso? Like, reason, or what?
Oh, people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah, I believe that. I truly believe that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I start looking at, like, let's say I don't fuck with him, like, oh, fuck you. I'm taking my power away. But if I see him, like, you know what? I don't have to say it in his face, but thank you for what you taught me. But aquí ya quedó, right?
Yeah,
and I move on. So the next friendship that I have, I'm like, I don't want to be that type of person. I want to be a better friend. I want to learn from that, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't in that mind space before. So I was like, fuck it, let me do this shit, right?
Do you think that merch grew after you gained purpose?
It did. I actually was able to sell all of my sales went to raise jackets for kids. I forgot where I sent them, in Texas. Through a friend I met on social media. I've never seen her in person. She posted on her closed circle that one of her students no tenía chamarra. And then the jacket that she did bring in smelled like piss, you know?
Wow.
I don't want to say it that loud in case she watches it. I'm sorry, girl. But that's how it started.
Yeah.
And something in my heart was like, nah, let me use that money for that.
Yeah.
And I started and then from there, I just started doing it. And I haven't changed that.
And down to, so with you, it was your merch. With me, it was this podcast back in, the last one we shot, Marmer, was what, like early January?
Yes.
Yeah. It was like early January.
Yeah.
And I remember that at one point, right, business was going good. I could afford to do 2 episodes of the podcast a month, but I was just in survival of paying my bills. And I was still doing the podcast with the purpose, but that purpose was it felt like it was running low. And it still kept doing great because I was still being genuine and I was still being who I was. But
your essence was still there, but something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like it just, like I was using the same ingredients and it just didn't taste the same to me. You know, It was like that. And so I got into having a slow season. So in November, business slowed down for me a lot.
Yeah.
In December, it picked up a little bit at the end. I was able to, pay off all my bills. And then because of that, I couldn't record for like a month and a half, I think. And I craved recording again. I was like, I miss recording again. I was telling Marmar that I would look at my platform from now a viewer's perspective and be like, wow, I have done a lot of great things.
Yeah.
But when I was living it, I was having that imposter syndrome. Like I was having that, like, feeling like, oh, like, what am I really doing here? Right.
Yeah.
So then January came about and it got slow again. And I was like, dude, but I want to record. But I was like, no. Like, I have to have direction. I have to really organize myself what I want to do with these next few episodes. And because I'm not just going to record just to keep recording. Like if I'm going to record something.
And I don't think you care about numbers either. You care about the message behind it.
Yes. Yeah. Even if it just touches one person. So then February came about. Honestly, February was so good to me. You can imagine I'm a coochie waxer. It's, it's Valentine's Day.
Did you see my coochie ad?
So you can imagine like it went so well for me. Right.
Yeah.
And I was able to catch up on everything. And it really, for the slow seasons, it gave me more gratitude for my business. Yeah. Because again, when I had it, I felt like there was no purpose. There was no direction. There was no, and a lot of people from the outside wouldn't even realize. Not only that, I wasn't in the best place mentally either, because I was having to learn a lot for myself, because I also had to come to realize, like, okay, before my outlets were something that, you just spoke about. For you, it was like eating or punching windows, right? For me, it used to be smoking weed. Yeah. Or it used to be working. I would drown myself in work. And I realized, like, that's not working anymore. So how can I be a quote unquote example to people or be on this platform when I'm not whole myself right now, because I want to do everything with intention, right? So now fast forward to my organization now with the podcast, who I wanted on here. And I was like, literally, I was like, I can't record without Rosie coming on this episode.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was like,
I was like telling Michelle, like, she wants to record with me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because
you, it's just all this.
To me, it's my everyday life.
Exactly. It's just survival mode to you. You're like, pues no me quedaba de otra.
Yeah.
But the importance, again, in this conversation is that a lot of people don't see that end of the tunnel. A lot of people don't know how to, I mean, granted, we did not know how to go about it either, but they don't even see that there is a possibility of a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
They prefer
there is a light.
They prefer to stay comfortable because, you know, like you said, growth is uncomfortable. So then came down to this month, and I kid you not, like, I didn't know how I was going to do it because I have a lot of things going on this month. I'm going to Mexico at the end of the month, and then I have 2 episodes and, you know, all these things that are going on for me this month. And like I told you, I saw a post that said, when your money, or because money is an exchange of energy también, right? So when your money doesn't have purpose, there's no direction where it's going to flow. Yeah. Right. But then the moment that I regained my purpose, I was like, all of a sudden it just started to get busy again. And I started to appreciate my business more. And now that we're here and we're able to have this conversation, I think it was really important for you to come on here.
Thank you.
To be, yeah, of course. And I knew, I was like, I know she's not going to see it right away. Yeah. She's just going to be like, why me? Like, why does she want me on here? But then even hearing you talk and what you've shared thus far, it's like, dude, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
No,
and other people do have sad stories. From you, you know, growing up in the hood of Inglewood, you know, not having the best examples, whether that was...
I grew up with drive-by shootings. Mm-hmm. My little sister was using the restroom and the bullet missed her by like this much. As she got up, the bullet would have hit her. So, I mean, I grew up in that environment, but I'm not that environment, and I didn't let that environment take over me either. So everyone will say, well, how did you do it? And, you know, our answer would be, well, I didn't know. I just figured it out, right? Yeah. But would you say that there's a difference through walking with faith and walking without faith? A huge difference. When you walk without faith, you're walking blindly. And you don't care if you're going to run into that fucking wall. You're like, fuck it, I already know what the pain is. Yeah. I'll keep running into that same fucking wall. But when you walk with faith, you're like, I'm going to fucking get through that wall. Yeah. You know, there's a big difference. Mm-hmm. But my faith came, and we had this conversation off camera, and I won't go into much details because, you know, it's a little bit. The day that I tried to commit suicide, I had to figure out, like, what the fuck is, like, what is it, right? I had to forgive the people who molested me, the guy who tried to rape me, the different people who molested me. And I had to take my power back because I had all these things that I had done, right? And I'm like, I'm a bad person. Why am I so violent? Why do I have these thoughts? Like, you know, all these things, right? Yeah. And I had to forgive them. And once I forgave them, it felt like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, this thing just lifted like so much, right? And my husband would be like, why are you so angry? I'm not angry. You know, that's how I tell him, but I was angry. And once I forgave them, I can see things different. I can act differently. I can react to things differently, you know? I'm not this, before I would like, you'd be like, let's fight, let's go. You know, I wouldn't think about it twice. Now I'm like, no.
La piensas dos veces.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, que si me saca un cuchillo, what if something happens to my kids? What, you know, something. Now you think about it. Why? Because my life has value now. Before I didn't think I had any value. I'm like, fuck it, it is what it is. If I go today, I go today. It is what it is, you know? Now I'm like, no, I'm worth something. I value my life. I love my life, you know? And it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing, but I think I would rather do it gracefully than be angry that I got put into the situation. Because I got put in a situation by God, by my family. I don't know. But I'm going to do, I always tell my kids, if you're going to do something, if you're going to do a fucking OF, whatever the fuck you're going to do it good. You know what I'm saying? Do it good. So I'd rather do this and do it good so that el día de mañana que mis papás ya no estén, I don't have any regrets. I was with them. Los atendí lo mejor que pude. It doesn't mean que les doy a manos llenas because I don't. I don't have manos llenas. But what I do have, I'm going to give it to them with love. Yeah. Instead of be like, why the fuck they put me in this situation? You know? Yeah. There's things that you can't control, and that's fine too. And whatever feelings you have, that's fine too. Your feelings have to be validated. But don't expect for people to validate your feelings. Validate your own feelings.
I think a lot of people wait on that. But, I think a lot of people wait for that. I think a lot of people wait for the validation. Yeah. And they stay stuck in the unfairness of life. They stay stuck in, well, these are the cards that are dealt to me. And that's the whole purpose of even today's conversation. Yeah. It's like, okay, these may be the cards that were dealt to you. And you may not know how to turn things around, but figure it out. And if you're going to figure it out gracefully, with no regrets, no resentimiento, like no anger, because we've been able to see and learn how that gets us nowhere.
Yeah, let me give you so when my brother was murdered, he was murdered August 13th of 2021. And I can speak about it now. Like I can talk about it without being like, oh my God, I probably get emotional here and there, but not like before. Yeah. Like before, no me salía nada, And in September, his trial started because they got the guy who murdered him. So from September of 2021 till November 2nd of 2022, it was his whole trial. And I will never forget. I mean, they show you everything. The murder scene, they show you the autopsy, they show you everything, right? I wish I had never seen it, but I saw it, right? So I'm like, the first couple of days, I me encerré en mi cuarto. My mom kept blowing up my phone. I know something happened and I'm like, Mom, please, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk. My kids would ask me, are you okay? I'm like, I don't want to talk. My friend came to my door. My eyes were swollen. Started chille. I just want to see you eat, right? But the day that they sentenced the guy, I got up there. I talked. And I said, I'm probably betraying my husband. Why am I talking about my husband? Because I miss him. I said, I'm probably betraying my brother. I'm probably betraying my family. I said, but I forgive you. I said, you have a life sentence, but if I don't forgive you and if I hate you and I hold on to this anger, I'm going to have a life sentence. And I said, and I can't. And I'm okay with what I said because that's what I felt. Till this day, I don't think about him.
I think that, because you said something, you said, I might be betraying my family. Yeah. And I might be betraying my brother. But I think in that moment, I think you actually taught them something. Because I remember, and obviously, we can't speak for people who aren't present, right? Yeah. But I remember the little bit that I saw of my friend Michelle during that time, it was a lot of hurt. It was a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. And you equally felt that, right? Yeah. But being able to say, if I don't forgive you, I'm getting that life sentence. Yeah. It teaches you something. And when you can see someone set the example of like, okay, she has a point there. And if she knows better than to not want to live like that, and, whether you're a mom, sister, whoever, whoever learned from you in that moment, yeah, they're able to take something from that. So even people that are listening right now that hear you say, and that life sentence that was put on to the man who murdered your brother, and the life sentence that you refuse to take onto yourself and have that in your heart, a lot of people live life sentences with many other things. And their childhood, the way that their parents raised them, if they were sexually assaulted, so many different cards that they decide to wear as a chip on their shoulder that gives them that life sentence. Yeah. And the whole purpose of this year's episodes on this podcast is turning over that leaf. And again, back down to, well, how did you do it? How did you know how to do it? We don't know how to do it. You don't.
But let me tell you something. If you were to be given a choice right now, y te dicen, here's your 4 choices right now in this minute. Be happy, whatever the choices is. But in that is happy, be angry, resentment. ¿Qué vas a escoger? Happy, right? And it's like, why are we holding on to everything that just happened yesterday, the day before? Mm-hmm. Like, atrás ya no regreses.
Yeah.
O sí regresa, pero how can you grow from it? How can you learn from it?
And
you know?
that's the thing is like, okay, us moving forward and overcoming all the things that we've been through, right, comes from faith.
Yeah.
So I think something that the enemy doesn't like to see is your faith be put into action. So how does he get to you? Do you know, like, probably what the answer is? I think it's doubt. I think it's fear. Like the whole imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like hay muchas cosas. I know what you're talking about because I walked through it. You know what I'm saying? Like
a lot of people do.
I only have a high school education. I have a high school diploma. I wasn't able to go to college because I was pregnant with my twins and I kept falling asleep.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it, I'll go back the next semester. I never went back, right? I'm dyslexic. I have ADHD. So I have a lot of these things against me, right? But if I sit there and I focus on what I don't have, I let that take over. And I'm like, okay, ¿qué es lo que sí tengo? Well, I mean, I might not be so articulate, but me defiendo, you know? Or I can have a conversation with you donde tú me entiendas, or, you know. But the more I kept focusing on what I didn't have, that's where I felt like I let the enemy in. Like I let the devil in. Oh, girl, you're not good for nothing. You're not good for this. You're not good for that. No vas a poder sacar las licencias. Hopefully I'll have my third license, you know. But if I focus on my weaknesses, I let go of my strengths, you know. And I feel like a lot of us do that, right? We're just focused on what makes us weak. Okay, well, what makes you strong, right? There's things that you're stronger than me, but if you find the right people, hey, girl, ayúdame con esto. Hey,
well,
cool.
Look down to how I even came to meet you. This has been years.
By the way, Michelle's known as the window jumper.
Oh, how does she even get that story?
You know what? Okay, well, because my daughters, my first grandchildren have the same birthday.
Yeah, the twins. Yeah. They're not actually twins.
They're not actually twins. So
okay, so that business we can say both her daughters were in the same hospital on the same floor, giving birth in the same day.
Yes. So we went to the swap meet, right? I love the swap meet. That's like our thing, right? So we went and my girls were there and yo me adelanté to get the car ready because obviously ya son 2 strollers, 2 car seats, right? Because my kids se me pegan donde quiera,
They
right?
had the same due date.
Yeah, they had the same due date. No, but we're at the swap meet. They already had the babies.
Oh,
so you're asking me how she became the window jumper, right?
Okay.
So we had gone to the swap meet. Was in the car, and this girl comes like in the car. She's like, "Are you coming out?" I said, "No, girl." I said, my girls are coming. I said, "They have babies. It's gonna take a minute to get them in." So she went around, right? But when she went around, I hear Michelle said it wasn't her, my other daughter, bitch, like they're going back and forth, but I never knew it was my daughters, right? So then when they get to the car, she's like, this bitch almost ran me over. You know, I was like, what bitch? You know, because I'm already like, not my grandbabies, you know?
Yeah.
So then I get in the car. And when I go around, it happens to be the same chick that wanted my parking, right? So she had 2 kids, one in a stroller. It was her man. And then, so yo pasé and I said, calm, I swear. I was like, hey, girl, I'm like, chill out, you have kids, be patient. She should have been watching where she was going. She was going in the pedestrian walk. What the fuck do you mean? Yeah. It was her right away, right? So when I tell her, like, chill out, my daughter, one of them starts saying, the one in the front starts saying something, and Michelle's in the back.
They're already in the car at this point.
We're already in the car, right? Okay. We're passing by to get out. And she just happened
telling you what had happened.
She had just told me, like, ella es, and it was the same girl that wanted my parking. So then I stopped beside her and I just told her, I said, just be patient next time. And that's when she starts going off because my daughter's going off. Then Michelle starts going off, but she starts going into my car, right? She was bigger than me in height, right? So when she starts getting to my car, I put it in park and I get off and I was like, what's up? You know? And so we start arguing and she's like calling me Felicia and all kind of shit. And I was like, swing, you know? So I get in that mode where I'm going to swing, and Michelle, from the adrenaline, can't open the door because it has child lock. So she jumps out the window. So as a teaser, I posted a little clip, like not the whole thing, right? Yeah. And so she started being called the window jumper. Oh, so that this happened 5 years ago.
I think I did see that clip. Yeah. I think I did see that clip.
But it's funny now. So when we announced that she was pregnant, I don't know if you caught it. I took a picture of her.
her belly was behind a window, right? Yes. Okay.
So I was like, baby window jumper is coming, but because everybody started with the window jumper, right? So it just stuck. But I always tell Michelle, I should put the whole video on TikTok to see if it blows.
Girl, they would love you on
right?
TikTok.
I was like, nah, porque luego se viene un desmadre, comments, and I was like, I don't need that shit in my life.
You know what's crazy is because, like, again, back to how I relate to you a lot, is like, we share a lot.
Yeah.
But we also keep some things private.
I used to overshare a lot. I share a lot of my feelings, a lot of things that I'm going through. Yeah. But I try not to share anything with my kids. I try not to post my grandbaby so much porque
there's a beauty in privacy. Yeah. And I'm learning that now. And I'm learning to move in silence. Mm-hmm. A lot of, like, there's things that I shared with you that I wouldn't share on social media because not everybody has your best interest. No.
Not everybody has your best interest.
No. Or not everybody can see your success and actually be able to realize that behind that success is a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to be honest. Who doesn't love money, right? Mm-hmm. But the way I see money is, what good can I do with that money? Right? ¿Qué bien puedes hacer? And that's why when you
opened up a foundation in Mexico.
I'm going to, believe it or not. So I was in my feelings because they weren't moving fast enough. Yeah. I take it back. I'm sorry. And I was like, fuck it. They don't want to do it. I'm going to figure it out. I've still been rescuing dogs over there. So I still have been doing that, right? Oh, wow. I feed them, whatever. So this time que fui con mi esposo, they went looking for me, pero ya me vine. And la presidenta's like, I don't know what happened. And I was like, I just want to know what's going on. Like, no me den a tole con el dedo. Like, if you tell me, this is the type of person that I am. If, like, how you told me, be here this day. And then you're like, fuck it, I can't do it. And then you keep just stringing me along. I'm like, nah, I don't want, that's it. Yeah. I don't like that energy. And that's what I felt with them. So now that they want to do it, my husband's like, just give them a second chance. I'm like, I just want open communication.
Transparency.
That's it. Yeah. That's all I'm asking for. I'm very communicative, like comunicativa. Like, I just say, this is my expectations. Yeah.
You know, even down to this podcast. Like, and when I had asked you, I was like, come on the podcast. Yeah. You know? You had told me, you're like, if my energy, I'm not going to be able to completely, like, devote my energy in that moment to this episode, then I can't do it. And you were like, I'm sorry, things come up. And I was like, no, that's actually perfect. Me estás haciendo un favor.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be here like all con mi cara toda fruncida, all stressed out, you know, cara de huele caca, what we call it. But I want to give, I'm that type of person. Like, if I don't have good energy, I don't want to be around people because I feel like, you know, it's contagious.
Because also too, you had to learn how to, be able to obtain that energy, right? The energy of, like, peace, being centered, being, like, just like level-headed and all that stuff, you know, and being whole, essentially, right? It took you so much sacrifice to be able to be whole in your energy. So you don't want to give anything less than that if it's not the time and place to be able to do that. Yeah, which is totally fine. I think, again, back down to acceptance. People need to learn how to accept when it's time, when it's not, when things are going to go your way, when they're not, you know?
And honesty. Like, if there's somewhere you don't want to be, say that. Mm-hmm. Say it, you know?
Yeah, I remember even when I was telling you, like, you know, to do the episode, you'd be like, I'm really not that interesting. And I'm like, but you are, though, you know? And then you came
I just feel like this is just my everyday life.
Right.
You know, it's como un pinche amor that I have here. Like, it's been with me all the time. But that's how I see it now.
So my last two questions for you is, do you feel like you have a hard time accepting and soaking in your success? So, like, and I don't mean success. I don't mean materialistic things, by the way. I mean the success that you've been able to obtain in the true riches of life, which is having peace with yourself, accepting yourself, being able to have a good relationship because you had to learn and grow with that person. The success that I'm talking about is not surface level, right? So,
it's not monetary either. You're literally talking about success with life.
Like the true riches of life, right? So, do you have a hard time accepting your success? And last question would be, everything that you've, like, por lo que has pasado, everything, and all the roles that you have to, the hats you have to wear, how do you keep yourself whole?
So, number one, what's the question again?
Oh, yeah,
my ADHD.
No, you're fine. So the first, the first question is, do you have a hard time accepting the true riches of your life, like accepting that success? Like, okay, I've done this, I've accomplished this, I have it.
No, I take it all in. I embrace anything, even the bad. I embrace.
How did you learn how to embrace it?
Because you know what, living con una tormenta en tu cabeza every fucking day, you get tired of it. At least I did, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how can I turn that around, right? So something didn't go my way, right? It didn't go my way. I'm like, okay, well, what can I learn from it? That's the first thing I ask myself. What can I learn from it? People might think I'm crazy, probably sit in my car talking to myself. Yeah. I literally tell myself, how can I learn from it? Because if you sit there and only focus on all the shit that went bad, you're giving it more power, right? But it's a process. It's a process. And like I said, every feeling that you have is good. You have to validate your own feelings. I can't sit here and expect my mom to validate my feelings. I can't sit here and expect my husband to validate. I have to validate my own feelings. And with validating my own feelings, I have to also learn to be alone with myself. I have fucking fun with myself. Like, I enjoy my own company. A lot of people can't say that. Right? Because what happens cuando estás sola, you're just thinking,
all your
thinking,
thoughts
right?
come to you.
Exactly, right? But what if you start training your mind to start thinking a little bit more positive?
And you have to be able to talk with yourself.
Exactly.
You have to be able to talk with yourself. I think like what tends to happen when a situation arises, right? Everyone picks up the phone and starts calling their friends, right? And I've been guilty of it too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll sit there and I'll call my friends.
Or you're texting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
or throwing subliminals on.
Yeah. I'm trying to find an outlet para desahogarme, right? And there's been times where I notice nobody picks up. And when that happens, I'm not sitting there like, dude, nobody picked up my call. I'm like, what is God trying to teach me? Because what conversation should I be having with myself right now?
Yeah.
That I don't need to have with anybody else because they don't have the answers for myself. Like,
for me, a lot also changed when I lost my brother, right? I saw friendships so different. I can't sit here. I mean, obviously you understand the pain because you lost a brother, but I can't sit here and expect somebody who hasn't lost a brother or hasn't lost anybody to understand me, right? And before I'd be like, she's not here with me. She's not supporting me. Now I'd be like, you know what? She doesn't understand my pain. It's okay if those friendships are no longer there, but I'm not going to have resentment, right? I had a best friend and we just, cada quien se fue por su lado after I lost my brother because I just didn't feel like I don't feel like the friendship value was there anymore. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
But losing my brother, like, it taught me about friends, taught me about friendship. I had another friend who I, had a conversation with her about mental health. It didn't go the right way. She went off on me.
You just outgrew those people.
Yes, I know. But what it has taught me is, like, I need to know when to walk away, and I'm okay with walking away. Like, she called me back. Hey, can you have a conversation? No, I'm sorry. Like, we tend to overexhaust ourselves like that when we don't know when to walk away. And so how you treat yourself, how you speak to yourself is how I'm going to allow you to talk to me. So no, I'm sorry. I want to love myself. I want to talk to myself good, and you're not welcome in this space anymore. And sometimes we have to look in the mirror and be like, this energy, this how you speak to yourself, how you're looking at yourself is not welcomed here anymore. So how do you switch that? One step at a time. Literally, like, no quieras cambiar todo de la noche a la mañana.
And that's not going to happen. That's how you get to accept the good in your life too.
Yeah.
Because if you're sitting there saying like, well, I don't know how to accept this, or yeah, I know I did this, but that's what I used to do too. Like, I used to be like, well, all my success comes from my struggle, right?
Yeah.
And so I would view everything as a product of my struggle. And then at one point, my mindset had to change, and I had to be like, wait, it's okay to be humble. Because at first I thought like, well, I don't want to over. You
don't want to sound conceited. You want to sound like I'm better than you.
Yes, I didn't want to like be able to marinate in my success too much because I was scared, And then I was like, wait, why are you scared? And I'm like, well, because then they're going to see that it's just a product of all my struggle. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing, Ash. Like, that could be that you got to overcome that. So like you said, it's important the way that you speak to yourself, because then it's the way that you accept the way other people speak to you. So before, people would give me compliments, or they would, congratulate me on certain things I've accomplished.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, that's cool, but that's not everything, you know?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, hold on though. A lot of people my age have not been able to accomplish this. And it's
like learning to accept a compliment, right?
Mhm.
Cuando te dice, oh, te miro, you look pretty. Oh man, I gained like 10 pounds. Nobody was looking at your weight, but you, you know? And so we have to learn to accept those things at the same time. And that's where imposter syndrome comes in, right? Because I was like that too. I was like, man, who do I call and tell them I got a new house? Like, what if they take it the wrong way, right? I have a sibling who, I say sibling because I don't like saying her name. She was like, you've made me feel like you were better than me. But it's like, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Now I see that. That's your problem, right? And when people tell you that, or they say, must be nice, it's a reflection of what they don't have, because maybe they're not trying hard enough. I don't know, and that usually, it's easier. Yeah, it's easier for them to say, well, must be nice. No, it's not nice. Sometimes you're working 16, 17 hours, you're taking my husband. This is the longest time my husband's been off, because he's been working since he was 4. His vacation is maybe 4 days, 5 days, but he's still working, from wherever he's at. But right now he's forced to not work because, he just had surgery. But
he's going to be like, this is so nice.
Right?
Yeah. I hope he gets to enjoy it.
He's never wore sweats ever. He's the type of person que se baña, se cambia y se pone el pantalón para trabajar for the next day. And I tell him, I said, no, you got to learn to relax. You got to learn to like enjoy your house, your recliner, your coffee, your TV, like enjoy these things, Sí, los lujos de la vida, quien no se quiere ir a something luxury and nice, but sometimes el lujo de la vida is just being able to breathe and be like, fuck, this feels good, And
how do you maintain or fill your own cup with all these responsibilities?
I've learned to say no. I text my kids, we're in a group chat, and I will tell them straight up, I'm not doing mentally okay. Please do not call me or text me unless somebody's dying or something's burning for the next 2 days. And my kids will respect that. But I have to have that open communication. Yeah. And again, I have to, what is taboo, mental health, feelings.
I love that they don't take it personal.
No, they don't.
Because I feel like a lot of people tend to do that. Well, is she mad at me? Is she feeling some type of way? What's going on here? Yeah. And it's like,
Michelle will be like, Mom, the 48 hours are up. What's up? How are you? Like, or can I call you? My kids call me every day. My son lives in the back, so he doesn't call me. But I'm very, very blessed of where I am now with my relationship with them, that I feel like, fuck, me gané la lotería. Because it wasn't like that before. Like before, I would always be angry. Oh, I gotta fucking do this. I gotta do that. Because I had so much bottled in that I wasn't processing. And now that I've processed it, yes, it fucking hurts. It fucking hurts to be like, oh yeah, I was molested by this person and I didn't find out till I was 25. It hurts, right? Pero if you don't do the work, that shit is going to eat you up cuando tengas 50, 60, 70. And I refuse. I rebuke that shit. You know what I'm saying? To live my life like that. I can't. I'm 46. And I'd be like, fuck, I'm 46, but I feel like I'm 20,
I didn't realize that until I accomplished everything that I wanted to, because I was so stuck in survival mode. Yeah. That I was like, okay, you know what? I didn't even think about processing the things that I've been through. Because in order to overcome them, you have to process them, right? And that's, again, back to the purpose of accepting things and being able to move forward, right? So I wasn't even able to process things in order to turn that page, because I was so stuck in survival mode, which I think a lot of people are guilty of, right? You think, well, once I have this car, and once I have this house, and once I accomplish this, and once I have a certain amount of money in my account, like I'm gonna be good. Once. But
then it's never enough.
It's never enough. Yeah. And so when I realized, like, dude, this is never enough. I'm not catching up. I think once I get here, and then that also comes with being someone who's ambitious. Is like, you think once I hit this milestone, I'll be good. And then you hit it, and then you can't even soak in the joy of the moment too long until you're on to the next
because
thing.
we're not taught balance. We're not taught balance at all. It's like, tienes que seguir chingando. You made it, okay, but what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you are in survival mode, but you're not taught balance because that's what we saw.
And the moment that life started to go good for me, I panicked. I was like, oh, so I don't have to worry about getting evicted this month? Like, I have somewhere to stay?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't have to be in a home where like, siempre me andan gritando?
Because you were stuck in your past stories.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Right? And it like we were talking about before, like, I don't bring up my brother that much on my social media before, right? For a while, it was like I was hitting myself on the head with the same shit over and over and over, right? And it's like, that shit gets you tired. Emotionally, it drains you, right? So it's like, what do I do next?
And people need to learn that I feel like they like, I learned it, right? And we can have this conversation, but anybody that's listening is they have to be able to learn that. It's like, it's not once you get to this. It's not once you do this. It's once you learn to accept things for what it was, what it's not, and have faith that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it starts with you. There's no perfect way to know how to go about it. There's no perfect way to handle certain things. But as long as you're able to be self-aware and you have the desire to change, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
That's where it starts.
And also, like, volvemos otra vez, the whole stories are past. Like, give it grace, be thankful, and close that fucking chapter, bury it. You know what I'm saying? Because I get tired personally of always having to tell the same story, and that's why I don't tell it anymore. Yes, I'm bringing up my whole I bring up certain things, but I don't say the story over and over.
And that's what I got tired of last year.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I think this podcast, it's doing great in allowing people to not feel so lonely in their circumstances or the things that they went through, but they need to hear from a different perspective that's not.
Because if you keep telling me the same story, right? That's all I see.
You're just I feel like you're just opening up.
But you want me to see you in a different light, but you keep bringing up a different story. So how the fuck can I see you in a different light when you don't even see yourself in that light? And it's like, I don't tell myself that story now. I'd be like, fuck, I'm 46 and I'm doing this. I'm gonna give you una historia. I love Marshalls. I know. People are against it, but I love Marshalls and Ross, right? But when my kids estaban chiquitos or they were going to school, I was brought up que tu cheque es tu cheque y el mío es el mío, right? Because that's how my mom was, right? Because my dad couldn't keep a job at the time. So my mom would be like, that's my money. So that's how I was with my husband, right? So when I would get my paycheck, that was my money. And I had to figure out how to pay certain bills, and he would pay certain bills. He was like, he wouldn't even tell me, ¿por qué eres así? And I'm like, I'm independent. Yo puedo sola or whatever, right? So I would go to the store. My kids started school. I couldn't afford to buy everybody shoes, right? As it is, we were on a budget, right? So I would go to Marshalls, and I remember this one time, this lady had a fucking cart full, right? I don't know how she paid, if she paid cash or whatever, but it was full. And I remember like, man, one of these days, un día voy a entrar, because I would buy, le compraba los zapatos a Michelle, por ejemplo, then the next paycheck le compraba otro, like that. I couldn't go buy everybody their shoes for school. You know how now I don't think it's that important, but before, when the kids would start school, new shoes, new backpack.
Okay, it's still important.
I don't know if it's picking up my work shoes, but but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it was. And now that I'm older, every time I buy something and I can buy it cash or with my debit, I'm so fucking proud of myself. Because I used to be, si yo ganaba $1, yo gastaba unos 50, right? Because that's what I was taught. Que le voy a abonar este dinero, que le voy a abonar este dinero. And that's living in poverty, right? That's how you're programmed to live in poverty. Always owing money. Always owing money. So I always tell my kids, if you can't afford some shit, no se vayan a endeudar, right? Because it empieza con el estrés, empieza con esto, empieza. Aparte de eso, if you can't afford it, that means you don't fucking need it right now. What do you have? Like, you know?
Focus on what you have.
Yeah, but it makes me, because I still remember, like, one time, man, this is fucked up. Now that I think about it. My husband he was a musician, right? And iba a tocar los sábados y llegaba en la madrugada del domingo. So I would take the kids out so he can sleep. And I took him back then to IHOP one in Inglewood. They closed that one down. And they ordered their food and I ordered mine. And I knew I had, like, back then you could afford, 4 plates for like $25, right? It was 25 and some motherfucking change. So I didn't have enough, right? And I was like, fuck, what do? I took a hair from
Oh my God, I know where this is
and I
going.
put it in my food. But I felt so bad. And I but those are the things that I remember that makes me now say, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to feel like I can't provide for my kids. I don't want to feel like I can't pay for a plate of food. Yes, it sounds fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And probably people are going to tell me shit, but I don't give a fuck. That's my truth. Pero those are things que se me quedaron en la cabeza. I'm like, how?
I never want to feel this feeling again.
Yes, ever.
But too many people get stuck in that. Too many people get stuck.
Because then I could have been like, "Fuck it, I can do this everywhere I go."
Yeah, no.
I actually went back. I went back and I tipped her like the next week when I got a paycheck because I felt so bad.
Yeah,
and
most people are not willing to learn from those stories.
Yeah.
They're not, and I think that's the most important part to take from this is like have a story that's okay, but learn from it.
Learn from it. Y ya deja esa pinche historia.
Yeah,
no, what?
Yeah,
come on, let's turn that chapter. Let's turn it. That's why a book has so many chapters. If you're stuck on that same fucking chapter, you don't know.
You never get to write the rest of your story.
You don't know that Jose and Maria, ended up together and lived happily ever after. You know,
you don't know.
But I just, it takes that first step of acknowledging where your problem is, and sometimes you are the fucking problem, and you gotta be like you gotta take yourself and be like, all right,
willing to look in the mirror.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes people don't want to do that.
People don't want to do that because they're comfortable in not having to do the hard work behind growth.
Yeah.
So I hope that from the whole conversation that we had today, what resonates with people and what sticks with them, that they truly sit there and apply it. You know, that was the most important part. And I knew that you coming on this episode, I knew that it was going to flow the way that it needed to. And I know that you're, for you, it's day-to-day life, but I knew that your story was one that people needed to hear. A struggle that got converted into a great, I don't want to say ending because it's still being written, but you turn that chapter and you've completely rewritten your entire life story because you weren't a victim to your circumstances, So I hope anybody
I was
at
a certain time in my life.
But
it happens.
But that's okay though.
Yeah.
And I know you know that, but anybody listening right now, they have to be able to accept that. That's okay.
Yeah. It's totally okay. Pero
it happens to
tenemos
all
que
of us.
seguirle. We have to grow from it because, like I said, we're not getting any younger at all. And
la vida, it, like I said off camera, it's never going to be linear.
Never.
So if you guys definitely do want to hear more from us, feel free to follow her. It's Jefas_run the world. Right?
It's _Jefas run the world. Or I don't know, but if you look Jefas run the world,
it's going to be her.
You know how you just do it on a daily basis?
Yeah,
You're just like, it's just Jefas run the world. And you'll see Viva la Jefa as my picture with roses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Rosie,
you
for coming on. Of course, thank you so much for making the drive. If you guys want to go ahead and follow us on Instagram, if you guys want to follow us on, or subscribe, better said, on YouTube, it's Todo Vida Podcast. My name is Ashley. I'm the owner to Self-Care by Ash LLC. And just, again, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody listening. Thank you, Rosie, for coming on. And take from this episode what resonates and just apply it, because we're no longer living in the past. Yeah.
Exactly.
Como dijo Rosie, cambia esa historia.
A chingarle pa' enfrente.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Rosie, once again. And peace out.